Hey everybody, welcome back to Cool Stuff Etc. My name is Riley, and this is another episode of What Have I Been Up To, also known as Hoobie 2, that's what I like to call it in my head. Um, it's been a minute since I posted a video, and that was partially because I was still recovering from being sick, partially because of holiday stuff, partially because of being on break, not having to work, and being busy doing things that are not being at work. So, but the good news about being on break is that I got a lot of movie watching done. So today, this video is gonna mostly be movies, a little bit of books, a little bit of board games, a little bit of music here and there. So stick around. I'm gonna try and I think I was doing a lot of thinking. I think sometimes I was doing some thinking, and I decided that movies that I don't own physically, I will not talk about for very long, so I don't just ramble on about stuff that I'm not like showing physically, because then I just am like talking at the camera, and there's nothing to look at other than me, which is not like very enticing. So, yeah, so I'm gonna talk about quickly about the movies that that I don't own physically, and the ones I do own physically, I'll talk more about them. So I'll get started because I've already wasted a minute. So, on December 12th, Katie and I watched Rampage on HBO Max. This is, if you're not familiar, an adaptation of the Rampage video game starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It was really, really not great, but it was fun to laugh at. So yeah, it was a good like poke fun at movie. So I gave it 2 stars, but it was pretty enjoyable, but not in a way that would mean like a good movie. Then on the 15th, I watched Green Room. This is the second time I've seen it, and I think I liked it even more this time around. It's been a while. I gave it 4 stars, and it's just really tense. It's one of those movies that builds tension really well. The acting is pretty great. The idea, the premise is interesting as well, and the practical effects are cool too. I would recommend it. Then I watched Tales from Earthsea. This is a Ghibli adaptation of the classic fantasy novels by Ursula K. Le Guin. I really dug the pastoral vibes, the world, and the world just seemed to really mesh with Ghibli's like whole ethos and their pathos, I guess. And as well animated as you would expect from Ghibli. I would say it's a bit of a slow burn. It's about 2 hours, almost 2 hours long, and it's a little slow. But the ending is crazy. I would recommend it just to watch the ending. So I gave that 3.5 stars. Then on the 17th, I watched Juno again. I used to own Juno physically. I guess I sold it for some reason or another, but I really enjoyed it. It's even though it does fall into those tropes of like mid 2000s indie comedies, like the dialogue is very eye roll inducing by today's standards, but it still had heart. It was still emotional. It was still pretty funny at parts. Yeah, just an enjoyable film. So yeah, I gave that one 3.5 stars. On December 18th, I watched 2 movies. That's Rush Hour 2 first. Nothing to say about that. It's just your standard action comedy. Jackie Chan's great. Chris Tucker is quite annoying most of the time. Not just like what he says, but like his character, which I know, his character gets his comeuppance and stuff, but it's still just like so obnoxious. It's too much. It's just too much. The action's all right. It's not super well directed like Jackie's, his when he directs it, or when someone, in China, a Chinese director directs it. But it's passable. It's fine. It's a decent enough movie. It's very nostalgic for me. So, yeah, I gave that one 2.5 stars. And then on the same day, I watched Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which, logically speaking, that doesn't make any sense since I haven't seen any other Nightmare on Elm Street films. We'll get to that. But this is really great. It's kind of a meta commentary. It's before Scream by a couple years, so it's kind of, to me, it's like a precursor to that, and Scream is a movie that I love. And I think that a meta commentary horror is sort of a dime a dozen these days. But something about this one just like set it apart. Like they didn't throw it in your face really. Like it was just kind of like very, like it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be noticed in a sense. I'm having trouble describing it, but like you think about something like, I can't think of anything off my head, but there's quite a few movies that are just like, they know they're a horror movie and they're doing things that horror movies do. And that's fine. That's fine as well. But this one didn't seem to have any didn't seem to have airs about it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I enjoyed it. The ending is kind of a little bit slow. Kind of, I don't know. Even though it's kind of a cool location and set, it kind of lost me at the end a little bit. But I still gave it 3.5 stars. So that was pretty good. Then I watched Casino the next day, December 19th. This is a Scorsese film, one of the few that I haven't seen yet. And it's a long movie, and it kind of follows in the footsteps of a lot of his movies that deal with, power and masculinity and those sorts of concepts. And so I will say it's not as good as something like Goodfellas or The Irishman. But it's still very good. It's still very well made. The acting, as you'd expect, is great. The dialogue is full of F-bombs and other curse words and stuff, slurs and whatnot. So you get your money's worth in that sense, I guess. But yeah, it's a great Scorsese film. Not much else to say about it. I gave 4 stars. Okay, now we start the 20th, December 20th. I watched technically 5, but 4, I should say 5, but technically 4 movies that I owned. I was trying to go through a lot of the DVDs that I have. So first up, I watched Moonrise Kingdom. You want to hear Katie in the background sing at the cats because they're being bad. This is a movie that I loved as a kid. I kept this thing as characters. I love this movie as a kid. It was one of the first movies that I watched that was very unusual. It wasn't your standard film. Wes Anderson has a certain style, and it's not easily replicable. And yeah, I don't know. I was very enthralled by this movie as a kid. I really enjoyed it, and rewatching it now, it kind of recaptured that. Having seen other Anderson films at this point, I definitely see the flaws in this movie. They're pretty prevalent, actually, which is fine. Not every movie has to be perfect. Let me open this map so you can see. This is a very good Criterion edition thing. Has lots of very little supplemental stuff. So yeah, it's not perfect. I would say it's one of his more middle of the road in terms of, like, if I was to be objective, it's one of the more middle of the road ones. But if I'm being very subjective, it is one of my favorites of his. I really adore this movie. A lot of it is nostalgia, I will admit, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it's just like, this is a very fun, clever movie. And I don't know, yeah, I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's great. All right, the next one, this is where the technically 4-5 films comes in, because I watched both Kill Bills. I logged it as Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, and because I've seen these both before, but never back-to-back, so I had a double feature. And my God, these are phenomenal. I gave 5 stars to both. I love these movies so much. Like Moonrise Kingdom, this is another movie where it's like, as I have gotten older and seen more films, I can see where Tarantino is drawing his inspiration from, and it gives me more of an appreciation for what he's doing, because he's drawing from things, but it's not just like plagiarism. It's its own thing. Like, it's inspiration, yeah, I don't know. These are great movies. The action's awesome. The dialogue and the characters are really cool. I will say the second one is to me weaker than the first, but as a whole, like, if you watch them back to back like I did, I think that really adds to the experience. And so for me, watching these, I felt like they were 5-star films. So, but maybe if I watched Kill Bill Volume 2 on its own, I wouldn't feel quite as strongly about it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then a very big detour from Kill Bill is Elephant by Gus Van Sant. I did not know what I was getting into watching this movie. I've only ever seen, this is actually an old Blockbuster box. I bought this used. This is a very unique kind of film. I've only ever seen Good Will Hunting by this director, and this is a very, very different beast. Basically, the whole movie, it's about 80 minutes long, and you're following these high school kids. A lot of it is over the shoulder. Most of it is over the shoulder. One takes a couple minutes long. You jump back and forth between the kids, and it is about a school shooting. It's akin to me like to a horror film in the way that it builds tension, and they take a long time before things pop off. And then when they do, you know, it's like a big release of tension, but it's still it's very impactful, I would say. And you know, I wasn't sure if they were going to show this explicit violence, you know, that you would expect from some sort of situation like this, but they do it on occasion, and it's kind of gut-wrenching, honestly. It was a very emotional film. That all being said, I didn't love it. I don't. It's not really a movie that, to me, it's not really a movie that you're supposed to enjoy. It's a movie that's supposed to make you think, supposed to make you appreciate being alive. And, you know, as you can see on the cover, it did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes, as well as Best Director. Yeah, it's worth a watch. If you are a film fan, it is worth a watch. But it is not, to me, it's not the easiest movie to sit through for a number of different reasons. I gave it 3.5 stars. I should mention that. Tombstone, directed by, who is this directed by? George P. Cosmatos. I've heard that this kind of is one of those movies that has multiple directors. I don't know exactly what that means, but this is a Western film. This is not like a classic Western. It's not a Western from the classic era of Westerns. But it is a Western in the tradition of the classic film. And it is great. Kurt Russell plays Wyatt Earp, along with the Earp brothers, Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton. And then Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday. And poor Val Kilmer is like sick with like tuberculosis the entire movie. So he's just like, but he's acting his ass off. I will tell you that much. This is a great movie. It was very emotional. It got really dark when I wasn't expecting it to. And above all, it was proving to me that my preconceived notions about Westerns are wrong. I don't know why. I had this idea that Westerns have very formulaic plots. They all follow the same structure. And of the 3 or 4 that I've seen, I've been proven wrong every single time. So I think I should just stop going into movies expecting that sort of thing. This is great. You do not know where the plot's going to go, I would say. It's kind of I guess it eventually becomes kind of like a revenge film. But it has a very strong emotional core, and that's the kind of movies that I really vibe with. So I recommend it. It's unusual for me, but it is good. And then, so that was on that day, the 20th, that was 5 movies technically. And then the 21st, I had planned to do the same thing, but I got really lazy. I was sick, I should mention. These were the days that I was like really sick. So I don't know how I sat through 5 films and I was super sick on the 20th, but the 21st, I could only make it through RoboCop. And this is also another great movie. I loved it, honestly. This is another one where the story was not what I was expecting it to be. Sorry, I keep bumping the table and shaking my phone. It was not what I was expecting it to be, aside from the premise of this guy dies and becomes a cop. But it was really cool. The stunts were great. The practical effects were of their time, but I mean, I could still I can still appreciate them. Especially the stop motion for the big robots. I can't remember their names, but God, that was so cool. And yeah, honestly, and this is another movie. Paul Verhoeven is a director where all of his movies that I've seen, which is 3, but like they all have an emotional side to them that you wouldn't expect from big budget or big-ish budget action films, sci-fi action films, but they do, and it works great. He has a way of making movies, directing that really instills pathos into his characters and his stories. So yeah, I can't recommend this enough. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. Did I mention that I gave Tombstone 4? I can't remember. The Then on the 23rd, Katie and I, along with probably half of the U.S. population and a good chunk of the global population, we watched Glass Onion. It was nowhere near as good as Knives Out, in my opinion. It just, I don't know. I was excited to watch it for sure, but it kind of just fell flat for me. I think that the main issue for me was that the supporting cast, aside from Daniel Craig and Janelle Monáe, they weren't doing much for me. It definitely felt weaker than the first movie, where everyone in the supporting cast was like honestly killing it. Like just Toni Collette and Michael Shannon and Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans. Everyone was like top notch acting, like truly. In this movie, just I don't know. Kate Hudson didn't do it for me. Even oh god, what's the big dude's name? Fuck, what's his name? I can't think of it. Big dude, you know the big dude. I'm talking Dave Bautista. I was gonna say Santoro or something like that. I don't know who that is even. Even though I love him in movies, but I don't know, in this movie, I don't know. I think I have an aversion to movies that feel very aware of the time they're set in. So like the COVID stuff, it was taking place during the pandemic, and it talks about lots of things that are very of the current events, men's rights activism and like social media type stuff. Is obviously a parody of Elon Musk, which I think is very funny, but I don't know, just didn't, I just, that kind of stuff just kind of rubs you the wrong way a little bit, so. But regardless, it was a good movie. I would recommend watching it, see if you like it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5. Next I watched, this is the last one I have physically, Lone Wolf and Cub. This is the Criterion collection of 6 films. I watched the second film because I've already seen the first. That's Baby Cart at the River Styx. And this wasn't as good as the first one, but it was still quite good. It felt a little bit more disjointed, I will say. Which is, to its detriment, there's so many stupid little things in here. To its detriment a little bit, but it was still an incredibly enjoyable film. It's kind of interesting that a movie like this is kind of slow. They kind of move slowly and they take their time. That's Ogami and Daigoro, his son. They're the lone wolf and cub, and they are assassins that you can hire, mercenaries essentially. He's a wandering samurai who has been framed for a murder. I can't remember if it's the murder of his wife, or his wife is murdered, but it's not by him. I don't know if he's framed for that. I can't remember, but so he's just kind of getting involved in other people's shit while also being tracked down by the Yagyu clan, who are trying to kill him. And yeah, it's just it's honestly great. It's like I said, very slow. There's explosions of violence and gore, and it has that classic samurai movie blood splatter. The color of the blood is pretty bad. It's what Tom Savini would call like Crayola crayon blood. But I can overlook those things when the story is this cool and the characters are this fun. So I give it 4 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, and I'm excited to watch more of them. All right, quickly I'll discuss these other 3 that I watched on the 26th. We watched A Long Game of Spider. This is based on a James Patterson novel starring Morgan Freeman. It was all right. I don't know, didn't shock me or wow me. Katie guessed the twist like 50 minutes out from the end of the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, that's probably right, and she was. So I don't know. It was okay. It wasn't. I was kind of in the mood for a thriller detective story, and it didn't really. It kind of scratched the itch, but nothing crazy. So 2.5 out of 5 is what I gave it. The 28th, 2 days ago, I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street to rectify the fact that I watched New Nightmare before I watched any Elm Street films. Do not restart my computer, please. Thank you very much. And it's good. It's above average for a horror film of the time. It's definitely better than I would say at least 80 or 90% of the Friday the 13th films, and probably better than a good chunk of the Halloween films as well. There's some really iconic scenes, mostly death scenes or like creepy stuff. The character acting was fine, and that was when the movie kind of slowed for me, but the horror stuff was pretty cool. I do think it's very silly that Nancy does like a Home Alone routine at the end of the movie, It's just so over the top and silly, but it is. I think it's supposed to be that she was dreaming that she did it. I don't know. It's kind of ambiguous. They didn't know they were gonna have a sequel. And then the same day, later that day, Katie convinced me, or asked me, I should say, and I said yes, to watch Where the Crawdads Sing. If you haven't seen that movie, it's based on a novel that was really popular either last year or the year before that. And it's basically like if you took The Notebook and killed someone. Well, someone does die in The Notebook, but it's like The Notebook, but a murder mystery courtroom drama type thing. Totally not my thing. I gave it 2 out of 5. She enjoyed it, which was fine. I was happy to have watched it. I was honestly interested in it. But yeah, it wasn't that good. The acting was not great. The dialogue was really corny. I was like laughing at a lot of the things that were said. And the coolest thing about it, honestly, is the ending, the twist. But even that couldn't like save the movie. So yeah, didn't super enjoy it, but that's okay. Okay, that's all the movies. I'm gonna go quickly through the other things. Let's do board games first. We played Dale of Merchants. This is like I would say it's a deck builder, where you have a variety of animal decks. So we have pandas. I'll try and show them. We have pandas and chameleons and squirrels and other variety of things. And then all kind of there's like 5 different cards per animal, and they all center around different abilities and stuff. And so in each game, you can change out what decks you use, which is a really cool feature. And essentially your goal is to create sets of cards from values of 1 to values of 2 to values of 3 all the way to 8. So you do that by selling goods and buying goods from the markets. The art is quite cute on the cards. I don't think this is a great game at 2 players. This is a little dice you can use for one of the ocelots. I don't think it's a great game at 2 players, to be honest. But I could see this really shining at 3 or 4. So I'm interested to try that with some friends of mine if they're ever interested. So yeah, that's Dale of Merchants. And hopefully I can have something more to say about it later. We also played Just One, but I don't have it because I lent it to my mom and my dad because they wanted to take it to my uncle's for New Year's. But that was fun. Played that with my family at Christmas. And then we also yesterday played Cubitos for the first time. This is a game that I thought Katie would like because it's a lot like Quacks of Quedlinburg, which is a game she really enjoys. So this is I guess it's kind of like, in the way that Quacks is a bag builder, this is a dice builder. So it's a racing game. You're pushing your luck, and you are, open these cards, please. And you're racing with your little cubey guys, and you're pushing your luck by rolling. If you ever roll all misses, you bust. And let me see if I can find some dice to share. There's like different characters that you can buy dice from. So here's a green, and they have different faces on them. And there's a variety of cards for each character that you can swap out in the games, and change, what kind of dice you can buy or the abilities that they have. So as you can see here, there's the green ones and the blue ones and all kinds of stuff. I had a good time with it. I think that this is another game that's going to excel more at a higher player count. I think 2 was a little unexciting, I would say. It wasn't as tense as I imagine it could be. However, it was still a very fun game. I enjoy the mechanisms of pushing your luck and buying lots of different dice. The dice feel great. So yeah, lots of great things to say about it. I'm excited to play it, again, like I said, at a higher player count, and see how that goes. But for now, I think it's just an okay game. We'll see if it sticks around or not. All right, we're gonna move on. The only album that I listened to in the past couple weeks that I really wanted to talk about, because I should just say that the reason I haven't listened to that much music is because I've been doing a lot of reading, I've been doing a lot of movie watching, and I haven't been driving to work, which is when I listen to a lot of music. So But yesterday we went to the arcade, Katie and we listened to Actor by St. Vincent. Obviously not on vinyl on our drive. That'd be pretty cool if we could do that though. But this is an album by St. Vincent, by also known as Annie Clark. This is her second album. It's like an art pop, art rock album, and I love her debut album. I've talked about it before, Marry Me. It's phenomenal. And I remember thinking this one was just okay. And I think to an extent I still do. But it's much, much better than I remembered it being. So many good songs on here. The Strangers, Save Me From What I Want, The Neighbors, Actor Out of Work. They've changed the order. The sequel is not the last song on the album. Interesting. Laughing with the Mouth of Blood is a great song that you should listen to. It kind of follows in the same footsteps as Marry Me, but I would say it's a bit less diversified, whereas Marry Me has like a lot of different vibes. This one kind of sticks to that, like, as I always call it, the like Alice in Wonderland sort of like down the rabbit hole vibe that I always get from her music. But it's great. I would recommend it. I think it's a great place to start, and it's the only only album of hers that I own on vinyl. So all right, then quickly we'll go through the 2 books that I read. The first being Vampire Hunter D. This is volume 1. I have watched, and let me see if I have the illustrations. I have watched, and I do own the OVA on Blu-ray, and I think it's quite cool. So I wanted to pick these up for a long while, and my local used bookstore that I go to had the first 2 volumes for like a couple dollars, and I was floored, and I bought them immediately. So yeah, this is okay. It's the story of the first OVA, the first movie, which is what I have, but it's different. I guess they must have changed it for the movie. So there's some characters in here that are not in the movie, and some plot lines, I guess, that you might say are changed a little bit. And I really, really enjoy the world that Hideyuki Kikuchi, that's the writer. The world building is cool. It's like a post-apocalyptic. It's like 12,000 years in the future, basically. And vampires and monsters are real, but it's also kind of cyberpunky. It's also kind of like retro technology. It's really cool, honestly. I think my biggest problem with it is at least the translation, if not the writing. It just, I don't know, it it's just a little cheesy to me. I should have known that going in, and it's fine, but it wasn't like super enticing to me. I do still want to read the second volume. I wonder if things will get better from there. But yeah, I don't know if I could pinpoint exactly what I dislike about this, but it's sort of a middle of the road novel. So, okay, last one. The Drawing of the Three. This is the second novel in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and I thought it was great. I really, really, really enjoyed it. The gunslinger and the world that he inhabits is so cool. I think that it's incredibly unique, and it really is something only Stephen King could dream up. So without spoiling the first novel, in this novel, the gunslinger is starting to draw the 3, the drawing of the 3. He's trying to gather his companions to help him on his quest to the Dark Tower, and the way he does that is by peering through doors into our world and inhabiting the bodies of people from our world, from our time. And then bringing them back with him, and it gets very complicated, very convoluted. The characters are all really unique and really cool, and they feel real in the sense, in the way that King makes, I would say that characters in Stephen King novels don't feel real in the sense of like, a real person, but they feel real as in they have very strong characters, and they feel logical, quote unquote, as in they feel like they're consistent in their character. And then, you know, just the story is very, very cool. So I recommend the Dark Tower series. I'm very excited to read the third volume, which I do have, but I'm reading something else currently that's taking up my time, and I don't want to be reading several novels at once because I just don't want to be jumping back and forth and forgetting things, which is what I was doing with this, you know, jumping between other books. So yeah, but this is great. I think the Dark Tower series has the potential to be extremely, extremely cool. And probably one of my favorite series of all time if it keeps continuing to be this good, and I assume that it will be from what I've heard from others. So yeah, very excited to keep getting into that. All right, it's been half an hour. I tried to be brief. Sorry, I fucking suck. Hope everyone had a great holiday, and you know, the New Year's coming up, so hope you have a good New Year. I can't speak today. Happy New Year. Stop the video.